Akira.
Have you any hobbies?
My hobbies are fast cars and fast women.
Hobbies are healthy. They teach you things.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
How we all doing? As the song says, are you ready? Well, I'm ready. We're ready for another episode of Around the UFL. Zach Common in the hosting duties this week, and we've got a trio of our all-star cast for this latest edition of the show, as we're going to bring you plenty of things from training camp as its first week has concluded, along with a few things on the horizon and some of the bigger stories that we will dive a little more in depth with from the past week of training camp. But where are my manners? I got to get to our panel here that is joining us this week, as it is two of the big stars of our UFL newsroom here. James Larson right next to us, our inside man on the job, our head writer and maestro on the website himself. James, how's it going? Covering training camp, man. Plenty of things going on we'll discuss later, but are you keeping stable mentally with the amount of updates you are putting out in this recent week?
Yeah, it's been pretty busy. As expected, this is what we all thought would happen with 75 players coming to training camp. And we know we have to cut down to 50 within just a few weeks. So it's going to be chaotic. It's going to be crazy. But that's what we're here for. Chaotic and crazy is kind of a staple in the spring football scene. So sign us up for that, right?
I know. I'm signing everybody up too, and I know the ref is going to be saying that even more. I'm taking his own catchphrase, for God's sake, as I'm hosting this week's show. But that's not unnormal for you and I to be switching around and being in this chair. How are you? How you feeling, man? How are things? I'm going to warn you, just off last week, you will get I will let you talk Houston Roughnecks, but I will be limiting your time on the set amount of Roughnecks chatter, my friend.
Oh, I mean, it's hard not to talk about the Roughnecks when they're about to go 12-0, rough them up. But I'll just say this.
Get it out of the way early.
Am I feeling good? Of course I'm feeling good. We're 1 day closer, 1 week closer to the biggest party of the Spring Stock 3 2-day event. Day 1 in Arlington. Come and meet us bright and early, 8 a.m. Central, out in Arlington, Texas, right in the parking lot. Because you know what? The party's in the parking lot right across from Choctaw Stadium for the opening UFL matchup between the former USFL champions and former XFL champions, or current, however you want to look at it, in the opening UFL matchup. And of course, day 2, we're going to go see the Houston Roughnecks kick off their first victory of the season against the Memphis Showboats. I'm sure our good sponsors, Vintage Varsity, do not like me to say that because, they are part of the yacht club. But come and join us for day 2 of Spring Stock. We're having a good old-fashioned tailgate, again, with our good friends from the yacht club. So if you're there for Memphis or you're there for Houston, come and join us. And I'll even reserve a spot on my shoulder that you can cry on after the game when we put the first one in our 12-0 run to the season. But yeah, that's how I'm feeling. Feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty great. I'm glad it's only 3 of us this week. I was getting tired of those other guys cramping the style. You think you're going to stop me talking about Roughnecks. We have 3 less people than normal, 2 less people than last week, and that's just more time for me to talk, baby.
I see what you're doing. It's fair. Okay. I'll try my best, but I get your logic. We got plenty to jump into, though, that and there is, of course, some Roughnecks-related items, as we will discuss for transactions, but plenty of other items going around this first week of training camp, plenty of social media coverage on that first week, as expected. It's been basically status quo anymore if we're talking both of these leagues combining, and no spared expense, it seems, with getting the latest going on the grounds in Arlington, Texas, or at the other facilities that are located around said Arlington, Texas compound. But yeah, kicking things off, I'll give you a few of the key stories, some things that we noticed, and one in particular that I think has made a lot of waves in terms of roster discussion is, it's with the Arlington Renegades themselves. And I'll kick this off with James. Gerald McCoy, he's put on IR. We're talking all USFL, all XFL talent here. An early IR out. Surgery was successful, by the way, he reported on Instagram, but it's an unfortunate loss for the Renegades, for a squad that does need to have a secure line, as it is important in all these leagues in spring football to have an offensive line right out of the gate that can get you some success for the guy behind center.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, offensive lines is so crucial, and sometimes it's something that we can overlook, especially in the spring football scene. But quality offensive linemen are nearly impossible to find, because you look at the NFL, they're struggling to find quality offensive linemen. So for a league like the United Football League, which obviously isn't on the exact same tier as the NFL, for them to find quality guys, it's tough. It's not easy. It's something that we can go back to the UFL championship last year when Daryl Johnston literally talked about this very thing. It's kind of why they want some sort of relationship with the NFL. That's a whole tangent that I could go on. But yeah, as you said, quality offensive linemen are tough to find. Garrett McGinn, that guy has just been doing it at a high level for so long. What comes
Yes.
to me is that 2022 campaign with the New Jersey Generals, where he just Darius Victor, Troy Williams, those guys had so much success, and that wouldn't have been possible without really an excellent offensive line that Garrett McGinn was the leader of. And then, won the championship last year in the XFL with Arlington. That's a tough loss for them. Now, it does make sense as to why they signed Nasir Watkins, because this is a guy that now can hopefully provide some depth at the line position. This is a guy that played his football at Kentucky, also transferred to Liberty for his final season and started in 11 of 12 games that year. He's a big dude, 6'6", 320 pounds. So we'll see if he proves to be the reinforcement that they think that he will be.
Yeah, they're going to have to shore up that tackle spot pretty quick is the deal. And of course, we can always, and Stefan, you and I can talk a little bit on this more so. Like, look, offensive lineman, defensive line, they get underrated a ton. I'll admit, the big boys up front, usually not as much of the glamour positions. Maybe defensive line a little bit more. OTs, OCs, the guards, usually not talked as much. But look, when we talk about the importance of each one of those O-line positions, everyone's got a bit of a value, but those tackles, a little bit more of that value because of the blind side, because of the edge rushers getting more of that speed, being able to protect and form a pocket. It starts really with those outside portions. If that breaks down, and again, we're talking about a QB group in Arlington that, seemed to have found its footing last year and does have a piece in minimum with Luis Perez that can guide a winning championship offense. You don't want to see him what happens to him, what did happen in Vegas, where he could not find time in the pocket.
I think that's why you saw it
last year.
I think that's why you saw such a night and day in not even really his performance, because he performed well in Vegas. But yeah, I mean, getting tackled, sacked, and not having the supporting cast that you might need around you didn't help him any good. But you see how fast he turned around. Things turned around when he went to Arlington. Case in point, I don't know how it happened, but they did beat the Roughnecks in the playoffs. I don't think anybody gave them a chance, right? And that really is no bias. You can't look me, either of you, in the eye and say,
I think all of us would say
right.
we thought Houston was going to win. So.
And I do have to bring up that even after the game, there's the audio clip of Bob Stoops going up to Wade Phillips, and he's like, I don't know how the heck that happened. Like, even he was like, what in the world? Like, so for once, that is not you being biased. I will say, the Roughnecks were certainly the favorites, but hey, Cinderella run for Arlington, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because again, same thing in the championship. I think everybody kind of doubled down on that. They said there's no way that Arlington pulls it off, but they forget that the team at the beginning of the season was not the team at the end of the season. And so, kind of circling back to the whole topic of this discussion, that's why, that's a tough hit for them to take if you're taking an injury during training camp to one of your bigger players that will help you get that success. Now, this is the benefit of having such a large player pool right now, is it affords a little bit more of that wiggle room when it comes to injury. You still don't like to see it, but we'll see how this impacts them going into the season, which again is less than a month away. And we're going to be watching another spring league. We've been covering spring football for 6 years, and I think there's at least 6 different leagues that we've covered in that time. Sign us up. Here we are, boys.
That's hard to believe, but it's that is indeed the case, is what's kind of nuts.
But the crazy thing is most of them were iterations of another league, and you can almost say the same thing about the UFL, considering that there was at least two iterations of the UFL. There was one in the 60s, I want to say, and then there was the one in the early 2000s, which is, I think, what more people associate with the UFL. Not associated with either one of them, but I guess you could say the same thing that Fox's USFL, at least in season 1, was not associated in any way with the original. Anyway, now we're getting off on a tangent.
No. Now you're talking. We need to add UFL records into the fray, and We're going to talk about it. Did Dante Culpepper, where he ranks among QBs in the UFL's rankings from years past. I think a hypothetical show coming up at some point, so to speak. Flipping on training camp updates once again, and something that to continue the lineman mentality. I thought this was interesting, and I'll tell you what, James. This brought a few rumors up online. People were talking about Gerald McCoy, former Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive tackle, nose guard type. One of the really, I would say, one of the better recent people at that position in Tampa Bay. He was actually rumored to be coming down to Arlington to be at the said training camp, and people thought maybe he's being signed. Maybe he's a late signing. He's going to go one last hurrah. Turns out he's there as more of kind of like a guy speaking to some of these younger players to try and get them some motivation, maybe help with some skills, it looks like, from some social posts. But it was an interesting moment last week during training camp updates.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, you look at a guy like that, and could he play in the UFL? Sure. But, I mean, I think his time is kind of winding down. But I think what's great is the fact that he went to camp because he wants to support these guys. And, like he mentioned, not only are there former players that he's been with or have been on rosters with, there's also former coaches of his that were there in his time at Tampa Bay, whether it was college. So to see a bigger name like Gerald McCoy buying into the UFL, buying into Arlington, and even I remember one of the videos that they posted of him at training camp, he mentioned something like, I'm rooting for the Arlington Renegades. So, like, that's the type of stuff that, if we see him on the sidelines at one of these games, maybe getting interviewed on ESPN or Fox or something really quick, those are the types of things that I think can really help add more legitimacy to the brand of the UFL. So hopefully we see more of that moving forward. Like, another example would be like Calvin Johnson at the Michigan Panthers home opener. I know Fox had interviewed him. Stuff like that. It seems small, but it's actually really big for the growth of the brand because you're having quality athletes. It's not like you're interviewing some guy that was a 7th round draft pick that didn't even play in the NFL for more than a year. When you have someone like Gerald McCoy or Calvin Johnson embracing spring football and being like, hey, this is really important. It's fantastic to see these guys out here competing. I just think it's fantastic for the brand.
Here's what I want to see on that same note. I want to see the UFL in 2024 do what the XFL wanted to do in 2020 in week 7 against the Los Angeles Wildcats and have Kurt Warner at the game. We've already seen him. Well, one, Kurt Warner throughout the last few years has always been supportive of spring football, whether it was the USFL, the XFL, and even now the UFL. In a recent interview he did, I think during the Super Bowl media row, whatever, during that time frame. I would love to see them do it, right? Because we all know, I think that was the game that they were targeting 40 to 50,000 people in seats. Then the illness we shall not name came to be. So that never happened. They were also supposed to debut, Archie B. Hawk, their mascot?
Yes.
I mean, that costume does exist somewhere. And if some of the teams might have mascots, actually, we don't know if they're going to carry them over, but you would assume some will. Screw it. Let's get them up to 50K. I mean, and someone like Kurt Warner can help them do that. I
mean, for your mascot there, at least they have Pablo and all those guys going to events, although haven't seen them recently, so I don't know if that's a phase out or not, but it is what it is.
One by one, Blob is taking them out.
Oh, God. Yeah, exactly.
The revenge tour of Blob.
You know that, man. You know that mascot's turning the corner with those deadpan eyes lit up in yellow. It's over. You got maybe a few seconds to say some prayers.
I mean, the Roughnecks never had a mascot. It would be kind of weird if they brought Ace. Is that what they call it? I just want to call it Woody.
I feel like you'd be better to bring Marty the Mauler and convert him to a roughneck anyway.
Nope. We want the Blob.
He looks like what I see any oil worker looks like.
I want the Blob. Shh, keep it down. I want the Blob. I don't care. Yeah, I know it makes more sense. Trust me, I get it. I'm just saying, I want the Blob.
On the McCoy
Kurt
note.
Warner, I do want to bring up a couple of little interactions on Twitter lately where it definitely seems like he'll be at some of those games. Shout out to United Football Media, our guy Brandon. He was going back and forth with Kurt a little bit, and Kurt said he plans on being at a lot of games because his son Cade is on the San Antonio Brahmas roster. So hopefully that tweet comes true and we see him on the sidelines, maybe getting interviewed, and who knows what else could happen.
That could be fun. See, these are the things I love about spring ball.
those are items to me, like, I think the league would love to have it so that you can talk to a guy like Warner. And let's not forget, and credit, a little bit different league and come up, but, leagues, if you will. But, remember, Warner came up through, the story. He's out of the league. He's a grocery store worker at a Hy-Vee up near Iowa, I believe it was, gets signed on to the Iowa Barnstormers, becomes pretty much an overnight sensation with them, goes to the NFL, plays in NFL Europe for a spell, and then becomes, what we know today. Multiple-time MVP, appears in 3 Super Bowls, wins one for the St. Louis Rams at the time in 1999.
Couldn't get it done with the Cardinals.
Yeah, well, hey,
I literally cried when they lost.
Dude, I was mad.
Blame me.
I thought
me, not Kurt Warner. I moved to Arizona the year that they lost that Super Bowl, and we already see my track record. I'm actually amazed the Houston Texans are doing good. They must have forgot that I live in the area. Actually, now that I think about it, though, they didn't start playing good until I moved further away from them. So maybe how are the Aggies doing? They must be doing horrible now. Because
they're not. No, they've been terrible. That's why they let go of Jimbo Fisher. That's why Jimbo Fisher.
I ruined their
in the
team
area.
now. No,
it is a pattern. I see the pattern now. You've opened my eyes.
I'm moving closer to Arlington. Then
the Roughnecks are going 12-0. All right.
Oh God, what has he done?
Uh-oh.
I mean, credit that 2 straight years not exactly been the results either. So we'll keep on that we'll keep that going as it will. Final thing on McCoy, as a reminder, I felt bad not mentioning the accolades correctly when we did this, but look, we're talking a 6-time Pro Bowler, 2-time second-team All-Pro that played for 4 teams in the NFL over the span of a 12-season career. Very much a dude that you want as a guy mentoring some younger players or guys looking for that next opportunity. Absolutely was a nice addition to camp. And I think, look, players I think love this stuff. From anyone I talk to, any guys you see post, they love seeing these NFL guys come down or someone come down and do like kind of a mentor type of thing, because you never know. Like I said, some of these folks like Gerald, they've lived the dream. They've been successful at the dream. They've had an excellent career with what they're trying to get to again. And I think that having someone like that come down is a great way to help, I think, bring a little bit more vigor to camp, a little bit more of, I think, some really just mentality of saying, let's kill it this year and let's have a great year nonetheless. Thank you, Nucky Knox, for commenting on my hat. I'm glad. This is a vintage varsity hat, by the way, just to let you guys know, this is what these guys do. Incredible, like retro-y, like funky stuff. They do great work, really.
Yeah.
Check them out, vintagevarsity.com.
They have all sorts of stuff too, because I think they have they have actually a licensing deal. Well, I don't know how this works, but they had it with the USFL. Well, they still sell all sorts of showboat stuff on their site. I think they even sell, or at least they're coming soon, showboats jerseys that look to be like nice and stitched. So this is something I need to talk to our guy, because if you guys didn't know, Vintage Varsity, sponsor of Spring Stock 3. We're going to be hanging out with him both at both days of Spring Stock, but I want to figure out how do we get like a PFN football jersey. That's what I need in my life.
I think that would be a nice addition, and I think you made an excellent segue. And I'll jump ahead a little bit on the schedule, guys. Don't worry, we will swing back on some things. So stay with the notes. But look, we've been hearing some stuff. SI, the crew over there for UFL Fan Nation, sounds like first that we have uniform updates coming this week from the sounds of things. And they've been heavily anticipated for the main part. And, again, we can elaborate this further. Mostly the USFL teams, I think a lot of people are more curious about. The XFL ones, it sounds like anything that's been reported or mentioned is little to no updates are going to be happening to those. Maybe some minor adjustments or not, we'll see, but the consensus is pretty consistent from what the XFL stuff is. Now, the USFL stuff, that's what everybody's wondering. It's Under Armour, different manufacturer than what we used to have with the USFL. And for the most part, I think all 3 of those fan bases, and maybe more so Memphis, or maybe less so Memphis, sounds like at least Birmingham and Michigan, they want to be pretty consistent. James, I want to get your thoughts to start. I mean, are we expecting major changes here with these USFL teams? Am I going to expect a maroon helmet from Michigan, or should I assume that my champagne silver is going to stay? Because I'll be really mad if it doesn't.
Yeah, so they're actually going to rebrand the Panthers to the purple and orange of the Maulers. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. before somebody goes on record and says
You
breaking
son of
for
a
James Larson, that was a joke. But to your point, yeah, I mean, Under Armour, I just realized now that I'm wearing it. Under Armour obviously will be behind the uniforms this year. So we're going to definitely see some changes. And like you said, everything I've heard the last couple of weeks points to what you said, where the XFL uniforms might be some slight tweaks. I think St. Louis might see a couple of small changes, nothing too dramatic. But I don't think we see too much difference on that end. Hopefully, we don't see much of a difference on the USFL side. There will be some changes because obviously Under Armour's taking it over. The design team will be working on that. It wouldn't make sense for them to change too much because obviously a lot of USFL fans are attached to what we've seen in Birmingham, what we've seen in Memphis, what we've seen in Michigan. So to completely rebrand those teams would make zero sense. I think what we will see is updated UA branding, probably some little tweaks to, Under Armour has a way where they like to have different little shoulder patterns or different things that we saw in the XFL last year. The numbers probably will look different. They'll be, and the names on the back, the fonts will look more like what we saw in the XFL. That's what I'm expecting. That's what I'm hearing. So we'll see. But yeah, hopefully that reveal comes this week. Should be exciting.
Yeah. Now I'll say this. I do hope they don't touch the USFL jerseys as much as they could for one simple thing alone. And I think we've talked about this before. It creates another level of distinction between the jerseys. One thing we heard with, I think, the USFL was there's too many red jerseys or too many blue jerseys or they're too similar. With this, now it kind of gives you a different distinction other than color. It's almost like a stylized difference between your conferences with the Roughnecks kind of excluded. So it does make things a little muddy there. Although I would not mind if they brought the Gamblers jerseys to the Roughnecks and just gave them like the Roughnecks colored accents with an all black jersey. I think it would look sweet, but I already know they're using, well, I don't know, actually. I won't say I know, but their brand colors seem to indicate that they're sticking with the blue and the red, which is cool. I wouldn't mind the black. One thing I'm curious though, are they going to stick with putting, I know it's the Rocks logo, but it looks like you're putting the Brahmas logo on every team jersey, and that
it appears they're
weird.
staying with that too, based on the practice jerseys. Anyway, I mean, because it is the Rocks line, which is the continuation, because he is the main draw why Under Armour's here in the first place is that partnership. So I don't see that leaving. I personally, I've made rest with the fact that you're gonna be knowing that the Rock is on every jersey in this league. If you're upset with that, oh well, but that's what it is. I'll allow it. Oh, go on. Sorry. My thing is this, and I'm okay if they, as Panther Shadow mentioned in the comments here, I'm okay if they do say a few font changes or something like that, maybe a slight design tweak on the USFL ones. My deal is, and I can't get by this, and it's a pet peeve thing. Maybe I'm wrong here. I've never been a fan of having a bunch of emblems on the chest for different parts. So for example, the Under Armour ones have to have by standard. They don't put them. Nike puts them on the shoulder for their logo, which is it's there and it's away, but it's not distracting on the chest. Under Armour puts their logo on the frickin' pec. So then you have to put the UFL logo, which is the practice jerseys version right now, on the other pec.
Yeah,
and I find that a big distraction. The XFL did it this way too, and the old XFL in 2020 had one patch. I'm okay with that. The USFL had it in the middle. I think it looks nicer right here where the NFL puts it, but I'm not the one manufacturing the jerseys. I'm not the one with the standard. It's a pet peeve. It's just distracting to me because I'm this looks weird. To me, this looks weird. The only other thing that's even close to it, again, listening to chat here, is the Rocket Mortgage patch from the Panthers. But again, that's a sponsorship patch. It's one patch on the pec. If I got two of them across the whole thing, what is this? What is this? The whole mess? It's a small deal, but I know it's going to stay on all the jerseys because that's what Under Armour does with their jerseys. Even in college, they do it this way too. So I am out. I have no choice. I'm stuck with this either way.
I just want the option to buy a custom jersey. We got it for a brief moment in the USFL, and I missed my shot because I was naive and thought, oh, well, if they started making them, they're not going to stop making them. Well, they did. I didn't do it in the original XFL. I don't think they had him in the new XFL. They just had Dwayne Johnson and whatever.
You always think you have more time. It's like I was telling you guys, I lost out. I was going to get, for this freaking show alone, I was going to get a USFL snapback on the USFL website and an XFL t-shirt. And of course, the week I was going to get it, fucking shop closes up. And I apologize for my language. Luckily,
I'll sign you up, Zach. Now James dropped one. I did it. Zach's done it. One of these days.
Here.
You can tell how frustrating I am that I couldn't get that damn snapback.
This is why we need Ducky, because we don't have a late bleep.
Beep. There we go.
I just need to add it to my soundboard. I don't have
me too. I was gonna hit a random button, but I don't know what it said. Tell me what this says, guys. What does it do? Can you hear it?
I'm not hearing anything.
Oh, the crowd can. So
Radio silence.
chat, let me know. Hopefully, it wasn't anything bad. I don't know what I have assigned to those keys. So it's done playing now.
Oh man, I'm scared to watch this.
You just set a car alarm off next door. The garage door opens down the block. What the hell's going on there?
Oh man.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Any other thoughts, James? Anything else on the jerseys? Are you with me on the patches, or does it just not matter? I mean, I know it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, I'm a pet peeve guy with that.
I had some of my qualms about both of the jerseys in both leagues, to be honest. I thought Under Armour had a little bit too blatant advertising, a little bit like you mentioned, like the huge patches here. It's like, this looks so clean in the middle. Like, even if it's Under Armour here, and you put the UFL somewhere else, personally, I'd like to have UFL logo here, and then let's put the Under Armour logo on the side somewhere. But I think having Under Armour is super important to the league moving forward. I feel like Under Armour can really be a big part of the UFL brand as a whole. Obviously, they have that working relationship with The Rock. They were a big part of the XFL. And the USFL, don't get me wrong, I like their jerseys, but they did seem a bit cheap in some areas. And I know, talking to some of the players, talking to some of the people that were involved in the USFL, they were like, yeah, we are looking forward to getting our hands on that Under Armour gear. So I think that's going to be a big, exciting thing for the players here this season, and the coaches as well, some of that Under Armour apparel. So, yeah, I think it's good looks all around.
Yeah,
real quick, just because I'll forget it if I don't mention it. James, because you own one. You know who had the cheapest jerseys in spring football, and that is the Spring League. Do you remember watching those on TV?
Jesus.
They look like elastic. I just remember players pulling the jerseys, and the jerseys would just rip off, or it would stretch for 3 feet. I've never seen anything quite like it before or since then.
And for the record, I have a game-worn Drew Anderson Jousters jersey. For those of you that may not have watched the Spring League, guess who was a part of that Jousters team? Luis Perez. And he actually split time with Drew Anderson. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a Perez jersey, but Drew Anderson, my guy, went to the championship that year with the Jousters. Good times.
Yep. Good old Mega Bowl.
Well, we'll keep going down. If you guys want to continue the conversation on the jerseys, we have put a poll in the chat between Nike, Adidas, Under Armour. I'm curious. I think everyone has a debate on this in terms of their gear, in terms of jerseys. Because, look, not in NFL-wise, but college in particular, it's like a free-for-all. And yeah, you can argue Jordan, but Jordan is part of that Nike branding, so I'm not going to even try and distinguish.
I'm going on a tangent real quick. How dare they put Michael Jordan's logo on the Detroit Pistons jersey? I know this is old news.
I forgot that they do that now.
But still, I mean, that is, I don't know if they know history. I don't know if they know that there was one team that shut down Michael Jordan. That was the Detroit Pistons in 1989 as well as 1990. So I would get it off of our jersey. That I think is wrong. Anyway, I had to go. Once it pops in my head, there's certain things I can't stop myself on.
Hey, I mean, if we're going to go to the NBA route, how about Jason Tatum with a St. Louis Battlehawks shirt in his locker room?
That's right.
Yeah, sign him up.
Celtics star, the team's arguably the best team in the NBA. And I think I got to attribute all their success to the fact that he has a St. Louis Battlehawks shirt right there in his locker.
It probably is.
Open.
Man,
so I think this is going to be their year if he keeps that in their locker. If he takes it out, Celtics are going to be a first or second round exit. So I'm predicting it right now.
I say careful, because that to me follows the Battlehawks mantra of last year. Good team, Chokes when it counts, though.
So this is
That's
why
the
I'm
Boston
going
way
to.
too.
I'm
I'm not
about-
even lying.
I'm
Am I
about to
wrong?
send
as a
some
Brooklyn Nets
Roughnecks
fan,
gear.
I want to see the Celtics downfall for sure. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm to me, that's my truth. I'm going to go with that. That's my Stephen A moment of the week. You can leave it up there. We will talk about this later if anyone has a problem with it. For now, we got more to talk about. Now, and this is a story, we're going to go back to the training camp stuff here a little bit more, that I found very fascinating, and the San Antonio Express News thought the exact same. And it's something that, sure, it was used last year in the XFL by A.J. Smith, but got covered a little more fully as Smith has now a business that is more brought to light, focusing on VR tech and the implementation for it in football, specifically with the quarterback. And what I found interesting, so if you read in this piece, and we'll share it out, post this show no matter what. I'll try and see if I can throw the link in the description of the chat right now. But main thing is he uses this to help with reps and help get QBs up and integrated into a new system. So one thing he claims, and coaches asked him last year, and this is per the article, is that they asked him how his team, the Roughnecks, were so quick to the draw on getting Brandon Silvers and company inundated to his offense, was the fact that this VR tech, he claims, helped them get to that 4-0 start and get out to a fast start. 30.5 points, by the way, was their average. That was per the San Antonio Express News on how they calculated that for the first 4 games. They were on fire. People don't forget that. And he's thinking that this is going to help guys like Quentin Dormady and company kind of accelerate to the plate and possibly make the Brahmas a bit more of a surprise candidate in this race for the UFL playoffs and in that XFL division. James, your thoughts? This tech, the whole article, I'll be honest, it's fascinating reading up on the tech because, like, 360 cameras, you can watch all the reps from different quarterbacks, either in camp or even you can pull from reps that have the same technology if you want to reference guys in similar systems. Fascinating stuff, really.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to point out a little disclaimer that there was, like, for me, at least on my computer, I wasn't able to view the full article because they wanted me to, like, sign up and do this and do that. So I didn't get to read the full thing. But to go back to your point and knowing part of what this technology features is based on what the XFL had last year, I think it's great. And I think it's something that we're going to see more often. These leagues, these spring leagues, what are they about? They're not just about opportunity, but they're also about innovation. The rule changes, the opportunity to incorporate technology in. Last year we saw the USFL, and of course in 2022 as well, with their first down technology, with the chip in the ball and being able to provide some really interesting and new characteristics of the game of football. So for AJ Smith, talk about innovation. This guy literally is the innovator in spring football. The double forward pass that we saw last year, that was him, a beautiful play design.
Oh, yeah.
He's just consistently been innovating new ways to score, new ways to get things done. So to see him go out on a venture like this is not surprising at all.
Yeah, and this is what makes me sad about this season. I'll be honest with you. AJ Smith was one of my favorite pieces of the Roughnecks, right? You look at they had a great coaching staff all around them, and a great player core around him. But we've talked about it in the past. Watching him in the booth, look at the game, you could just see it in his eyes. He's looking at the game differently than his other coaches around him. And this, to me, is another reason to prove the point that he's just a level above of kind of what you get in some of these scenarios, because I think it is probably some of this technology that helped Brandon Silvers and the Roughnecks come out so good out of the gate. I feel bad that they're going to lose at least the game against us. They're lucky they only play the Roughnecks once in the season. And, they might play us twice if they get to the postseason, which if I had to choose, I would pick the Brahmas over the Renegades right now if it comes down to those two. We all know the Roughnecks are going to get there, so that's not a big deal. And so it'll be a shame if they lose both those games against the Roughnecks. But otherwise, I think they're going to be pretty competitive against the rest of the league, and this is just another reason behind it. And like you mentioned, James, it's not just about opportunity, it's about the innovation. We saw it in the AAF, the XFL, the USFL, I'm sure the MLFB had something in there that we never saw, but they were going to innovate, I assure you. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game. And I want to see more of this. And I'm going way back now on the innovation thing, but that was one of the things that really drew me into the 2020 version of the XFL. When I went to the event that they hosted with the Spring League in Austin, Texas, to test their innovations, where they were going through the double forward pass, the overtime rules. That was when, I don't know if you guys remember, when they were putting cameras on everything, and they had like a 360 view of the ball that was flying. Like, they were doing all sorts of gnarly things out there. And now here we are, 4 or 5 years later, and we're actually starting to see some of it go into like real use case scenarios, right? What we're seeing AJ Smith do, like if you look at the article, he basically talks about 2016, the HoloLens from Microsoft came out.
Yes.
And he basically said, look, it's cool, but you can't really do much with it, right? You look at an application and it's basically like a see-through monitor. But he was able to say, and at least have the vision to look at where the technology was going and see how he could use that as an assistance tool in football. And he's, beyond creating the company, it's really paying dividends for him, because now he is an offensive coordinator on a professional football team. He talked about planning to coach in high school. No, he's in the pros. Some people don't look at it as the pros because it's not the NFL. Well, I'll tell you this, the UFL, as well as the USFL and the XFL they look at themselves like the pros. Yeah. And we've been at the games, we've covered the games, and they treat it like a professional setting. So, all credit to him and kind of the work he's done over the last few years beyond the coaching. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Without a doubt. Tell you what, this Dormany quote, I think, is what I think encapsulates it the best to me. And I think I love the logic here. So Dormany says in the article, or it's paraphrased this way by the man writing this here, that he can, usually on a 7-on-7 drill, you can get 20 snaps for a player. In just the review session alone with the said tech and watching plays through the different catalogs, he's going from 20 plays to upwards of 100 in one practice day. So not only do you get the 20 experiences for the snaps, but you now get basically, 400%, I believe it is, of the amount of snaps and at least views you can get. Maybe you miss something in what you're reading in that system, or maybe you now understand something better because you were able to watch from what you already do in that said way. And what's kind of crazy to me too with this, AJ could just he has business ventures where he doesn't even have to be doing football right now, is the way this puts it.
Yeah.
But because of the passion of the game and his dream is to eventually be a head coach somewhere, he's still in it. Otherwise, he could leave today, and this could be his career right now, is expanding upon this VR tech that and the system with the play schemes and the packages he sells with these MetaQuest 3s he's using.
I could see this being used. I could see this being used in high-level high school football for like coaches that are like getting players ready for the collegiate level, similar to our friend Brian Woods, friend of the show, Prep Super League. Sign him up. I could 100% see it being used there. I could see it being used in college. New recruits, we need to get you on this scheme fast, because the other piece that we didn't even talk about, we're seeing, granted, he's not out there running the drill, but he's getting, 70% of the experience of that. And I think the important part is the visual, all without injury. I don't know, maybe you hurt your thumb tweaking the controller a little bit too much. That ain't going to be good. But seemingly, this should be injury-free experience on top of your training, which to me, again, innovation and opportunity, one of the other focuses is safety. And so now you're giving a player an opportunity to, off the field, still learn about the game and kind of get ready for game day. Think about if a player is injured, they can almost stay mentally ready for a game. I'm sure I won't assume, but I'll say that AJ, I would guess, probably has some type of regiment that he could instill and say, hey, look, you're going to be out this week. There's nothing about that. We expect you're going to be back next week. But until then, look, we're going to be playing this team. They're going to be heavy on that. Run these drills through that VR headset in your off week. Just stay ready. Stay on top of the game. You might not be moving your legs, but you can stay mentally ready for the game. And to me, that's another benefit to all of this. Now, I would love to see more teams use something like this, especially the Roughnecks, because I want that upper hand. So don't hog it all to yourself, AJ. Please sign you up.
He's got the Brahmas. The Brahmas are going to be his baby. If it was only like last year and we didn't have the switcheroo, hey, maybe we could talk about something different for them in that case. James, any final thoughts on this before we get into really the meat and potatoes? And guys, we will start talking cuts and some surprises happening along the way.
I think it's time to get on to the cuts and some of the stuff coming up here.
Real quick, because we do have a super chat. Steven Sullivan, Spring Stock Group discount. Trust me, I'm trying. I don't know what happened with that. So I'll be honest, you might just want to get your ticket. This is the beauty of spring football. You start a dialogue and things fizzle out. I will do another check this week. I'll keep you posted. But the good news is tickets are cheap. So if it doesn't come through, that's what I get. That's what I get for talking before things are final. I usually am good at that. And this is the one time it didn't work in my favor. But yeah, I will keep everyone posted, but my assumption is we are close to the game and that might not be happening now, but I am a big dreamer though. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
Hey, actually, Zach, Buddy's Pizza?
Yeah. What's up?
Chris Mason. Tell me again, Chris, I think it was his uncle was the founder of Buddy's Pizza.
Really?
Yeah. Sign him up. Tell me if I'm wrong, Chris, because I could be. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. Anyway,
okay.
Me.
Steven, thanks for asking the question, by the way, and for the chat. We appreciate, and we'll keep working. It's just, it's a different year than for us too. For anyone that realizes, with the merger, a lot of stuff moving around for us even as well. So we just got to stick with it as we can.
So as far as tickets go, Zach, me, I kind of just sit wherever. So wherever you get a ticket, I won't sit where. I like to sit near the 50-yard line, but wherever you sit, we'll find you. We'll come. We'll meet in the tailgate. We'll come chill with you.
If I'm being honest, and you guys, this was where I would pick, just based on chalk toffee. If we're talking this alone, I would pick the built-up stadium seats. That
you're right.
Made.
I sat in those.
It's
those
the
are
best.
The best.
It's the best seat. It's right in between that 40 to 50-yard section. If you want to mess with Stallions fans, they are also going to be in that section too, by the way, because they're having contingent put there. Highly recommend those because to me, those are the best view. There's the closest you're going to get to the sideline because I imagine unless they change something from last year, they're going to probably tarp off those few seats in those like baseball stadium rows again like they did last year. Mm-hmm. That box is probably your best bet.
That is a good
those
point.
Those seats are probably your best bet.
That's where I sat in 2020. And those were the best because you're right. Those are the only ones that are actually parallel with the field too. Mm-hmm. So you get like these weird, like angled spot where you're kind of like looking sideways when it's like straight in front. Anyway, yeah.
All right, now it's a time.
Sorry,
we got some stuff to get on updates with because there's been some moves going around, and a few I think interesting ones. We did talk about, of course, Garrett McGinn, but we're gonna talk about more about some additions and some subtractions, if you will. Plus the fact that first cut downs coming up here this next Sunday. So stuff to keep an eye on, and I'm gonna let James ride into this thing because. I think in particular, we talked a little bit before the show about one or two of them, but definitely want to discuss a few that I think made some eyeballs pop, especially Memphis with some running back changes to start things off.
Yeah, that one was obviously kind of a big surprise because Kennedy Brooks is a guy that, Oklahoma star, rushed for over 3,300 yards, 31 touchdowns. Couldn't really find his footing in the NFL with the Philadelphia Eagles. His story is a little bit interesting because he had signed originally with the Philadelphia Stars, so he would have been staying in the city, quote unquote. Obviously, I don't think the Stars would have been there, but either way, that organization folded. But John DeFilippo, Dennis Polian, and the Memphis Showboat organization, they targeted him. They really wanted Kennedy on their team. They picked him up in the dispersal draft process. And after a week of training camp, they decided to move on. So, it's one of those instances, once again, where there's so much talent. You look at that running back room where you already have Darius Victor, you've got Trey Williams, you've got Kareth White, who really did some great work last year.
Oh, yeah.
And now all of a sudden, you're losing Kennedy Brooks, but you're picking up Titus Swen. And Titus, that's a guy who had a solid career at Wyoming. He's done a lot of great work there. And his last season, over 1,000 rushing yards. He played really well. He had a mini camp tryout, I believe, with the Colts. So that's a guy that I think could come into the camp and do some damage.
Yeah, and look, Memphis, clearly they're going to be a lot better position this year at the running back spot no matter what. I mean, look, they already had Darius Victor picked up previously. But look, they added Trey Williams into the fold, basically got Thunder and Lightning back together now with the Showboats. Brooks to Sween, I think that's going to be hard for even, no matter what happened with Brooks, even in this case. I think it's going to be hard between those two ahead of him. And you also have, again, you talk about Kareth White, who, come later in the year when they started utilizing the run game a bit better. White was that workhorse later on in the back half of the season for the Showboats. Kind of, no matter what, whoever's going to take this, I mean, you're almost hoping for, to me, a special teams role in this case, because it's going to be harder for Sween, I think, to make the roster even that still. That being said, younger legs, so hope is, only being a year out of college now, that maybe he comes in, makes an impact as he comes in. Maybe he has a little more of a speedster. Then maybe you're challenging perhaps a Trey Williams. Because to me, I see more of Williams as being the speed back option. Victor's more of the ground and pound guy. Still can catch passes, but you do want to have one Thunder, one Lightning, I think, in a lot of cases. White is kind of in the middle with this, but I do feel like he still fits in that category where it's like between him, Williams, and Sween, who are going to be in that discussion on who can get, like, say, that third back. That's going to be the fighting to not be the odd man out later down the line.
Right, because you'd assume that on a 50-man roster, they're probably only going to keep 3 of those guys. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. And another thing is, like, Victor and Williams already have that chemistry of working in New Jersey the last couple of years. So it's going to be interesting to watch that all unfold.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. And one of the moves, like I said, with Brooks, because I'm with you, I thought Brooks was going to be someone that could maybe make a splash or maybe hit that 3 spot if Williams didn't get picked up, or if he was able to maybe jump White to me, because even White by like USFL standards last year wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire. He was just the main guy on Memphis's roster that was really pushing the run game forward. So
right, and Memphis had lost Alex Collins, who of course rest in peace, Alex.
Rest in peace to him too, man.
Yeah,
damn.
I'd hate to see that, but Alex had originally gotten hurt earlier in the year, so he was out. White really stepped up. I will say White has a lot of talent. That's a guy that I got to see in person in week 8, and obviously early in the season too. But week 8, he had a really big game against the New Jersey Generals. I was on the field for that one, and he was tearing it up. He was really, really getting. And the Generals have a great defense, and he was getting through. He was making plays. He was picking up clutch first downs. He had that big run at the end of the game that really sealed the deal. So that's a guy that, I mean, he has a lot of potential. And in a system where, and I don't want to call out Todd Haley here, but I feel like John DeFilippo's offensive system is definitely stronger than what Todd Haley had the last couple of years. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. Whoever makes the roster, I feel like it's going to thrive either way. Yeah,
I mean, not to add on to dunk with Haley, but like, I think we all know talking post last year with, say, a Jordan Ta'amu. Still lit up the league in yards with the USFL in his first year, in his 1 year there, but clearly the system played much better for a Ta'amu, and clearly Haley wanted something very much his way or the highway that he's used to, and you can only get that from so many players. The league changes too, and that's what it is. Luckily, John DeFilippo, as we've seen, a little bit more flexible with the offense, so it should be a fun year. If there's anything you're going to get from that group in Memphis, should be an explosive, talented roster, at least on that specific side of the ball. No slouch on defense either, but I expect fireworks through the air one way or another. Speaking defensively, and I guess just talking in general, look, I told you, Ref, we're going to talk about Houston because they were the other team to me that and to James here, that did make some splashes and some discussion points in the transaction wire before cuts. Dropping Nick Grant and Shaman Moore, but picking up Whoop Filer as a receiver option during this past week's transaction wire. I will say with Whoop, he was, I thought he had some potential in Michigan last season. Didn't go as far as expected. Kind of got lost in the shuffle later on in the year. Corey Coleman was taking a lot of the reps, and Trey Quinn kind of started sneaking in with some more reps too. Mm-hmm. But somebody that I think, at least
you mean Joe Walker?
Well, Walker did as well. Oh, yeah, I'm thinking, my bad. Coleman was with the Stars, and I apologize to those that took that wrong. But yes, Joe Walker, absolutely. Trey Quinn did take reps, though. Thank you for that. It's been a year. And now you got Weiler, you got Whoop going to Houston, a receiving core that does need some depth, I would say. Curious, though, the cornerback position, it is competitive, but yeah, already seeing some drops in that category.
They're just getting ready for greatness. I mean, you have to perfect the recipe. You when you're at 99.9%, you still want to get to 100. Although I don't think anything is perfect. I think the Roughnecks are probably about as close as you get to it. And you know what? These additions are going to help us get to greatness. 12-0, baby. Rough them up. We're going to have a championship hosting trophy party this year. I mean, dude, when the Roughnecks are in the playoffs, you just wait. We're going to be so loud, so crazy. Fires. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I will say something I want to point out is last week we had a little conversation about the secondary, and we had a little conversation about, this secondary, it's young, it's inexperienced. You have a couple guys sticking around like Manny Bunch and Jeremiah Johnson, but a lot of these new additions were guys that hadn't played in the NFL or hadn't even played in spring football. One of those new additions is Keandre Thomas, who I think is really a fantastic pickup for that secondary. That's a guy who had some outstanding years at Minnesota. And then he went to the NFL, spent some time with the Green Bay Packers. He played in a few games. The last preseason he played in, he had a few pass breakups, compiled 14 tackles. This guy, he's got the NFL on his resume, so he can probably bring some of that veteran leadership to the room. I hate to see Nick Grant go. That's a guy that I thought was really solid with the Gamblers last year. I remember, funny enough, same week of the Kareth White big game against New Jersey, Pittsburgh, I played Houston. I was there for that game as well. And Nick Grant, he had a big hit in the backfield, one of those plays. And I was like, man, he's a hard hitter. So hopefully he ends up somewhere. But to your point, like Ref said, they're building that championship squad, which, I mean, you can't deny that they are trying to build a championship squad right now. So they picked up some nice pieces there.
I can't wait. What the first win, you guys are all going to be like, okay, everybody, I've seen bad teams win the first game of a season, but I'm waiting. I'm curious. Well, I mean, we're not talking about that. That was a fluke season, whatever. We're not going to go there. But I will say, if it was only a 3-quarter game, I'm pretty sure we'd be doing pretty hot that season. But I'll leave it at that.
You know what? You'd be a playoff team most likely.
If there was just one less minute.
If we would have won games, we would have made the playoffs.
We didn't lose them, though. We didn't
I'm going to get a tweet together on this right now.
We didn't really lose the games, though. It was more of like a fluke ending. The refs, I don't know what, and nobody knows what happened. All I know is we blinked and then the score was different.
Refs anti-law, I don't know, man.
I think it was a glitch in the scoreboard. Is actually what happened. Is something about that last minute in the fourth quarter. Something in the wires went wonky.
Butterfly the new technology. Effect. That's what it was.
New technology. The chip.
Yep. It was the chip. See, chip. No chip second year. Better record.
No playoffs.
Oh well, my God. That was. We're not going there. That was.
But see, this is weird because it's like, the Gamblers didn't make the playoffs, but the Roughnecks did. So it's like, what? There's such a strange dynamic here. I don't know.
The Roughnecks fans don't get it too.
You got the Gamblers roster, coaching staff, some of the roster, not all, but
that's what I'm saying. I had so many people at that stupid meet and greet be like, "The Gamblers, glad they didn't stick around." I'm like, "No, we are the Gamblers now with a new name."
Yeah,
you don't wait. Just wait till you find out Wade Phillips isn't the coach. They are. There's going to be some people at that game that are like, "Wait a minute, what?" I just know it.
Oh my God! One final thing I do want to bring up for a story, and it's because I think you made a nice write up on this, James. Is some of the special teams battles kind of heating up around the league as we kind of close up shop here for this edition around the UFL. It's particular, I thought your point was interesting in terms of tweet. So the J.J. Molson, Luis Aguilar one, I do want to hear about, and specifically too, Donald De La Haye, or as we know, Destroying, making a few rounds online for a specific, and credit, I don't follow Snapchats with these guys, but definitely ruffled some feathers with a few spring football fans on a specific comment, if you want to talk more on those items.
Yeah, he, well, to address your point of the Snapchat thing, I know he had made some sort of post of like him being upset that he had to share a locker room with another kicker. And that kicker obviously is Matt Amendola, who's an NFL veteran. He's played in multiple NFL games. He had a game-winning kick for the Houston Texans last year, so he's not just some random guy. Matt Amendola is more accomplished in this scene than Destroying is. But I'd like to get to your original point of the competition that we're going to see. And Houston really is an interesting one to me. The J.J. Molson signing, I don't dislike it, but there's other kickers that are available that, like, if you really wanted to bring in some competition, like, for example, Alex Kessman, who's no longer on the Memphis Showboats. I know he had a couple of rough weeks to start the season, but then after that, he hit like 22 straight kicks.
Wasn't too bad.
He was doing phenomenal there with the Showboats. Where in the world is Nick Skiba? That guy, the Generals had a pretty bad season, so he didn't really get much attention at all, but he was phenomenal. He only missed one kick. He made multiple kicks from over 50 yards out. I mean, that guy was rock solid for the Generals in 2023. So it's like, I don't dislike Molson, but you look at his college stats of like, I think it was 68 or 69% throughout his career. He's been on and off some practice squads. He's with the Green Bay Packers. Here's the interesting thing about Molson. He's very, very good on kickoffs. I know he won some awards at UCLA, mainly due to his efforts on kickoffs. And the UFL with their USFL kickoff is really going to be important this year because kickers are kicking from the 20. And they're trying to get it to the end zone. That's 80 yards you got to go to try to get it for a touchback. So that could play a part in some of these. Another one, Jake Bates with Cole Murphy in Michigan. Bates never even kicked a field goal in college, but he was purely a kickoff specialist. So is there room for two kickers on a 50-man roster? I don't know. But with these rules, we could see that utilized, possibly. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with the extra point being the XFL one too, not saying that field goals are going to be decentivized or XP because with the XP gone, but like you almost feel like field position battle really maybe it plays into a role more with how you pick a kicker. It's something to consider. If you're talking, and again, if you're damn good at getting a kickoff down range and any shot at a touchback, which is a win for a special teams unit, they don't have to worry about any sort of variable like that being returned. You don't got to worry about having the defense get behind the stick, starting at minimum probably the 35 in most cases. If we're talking USFL, that's a fascinating dynamic you got to worry about. Aguilar's a damn good kicker, but that is certainly something that is not in his favor in this case.
Right, and that's like the one thing where Aguilar, he's such a great kicker. I mean, there's all USFL last year, the 8-for-8 game, which I got to see in person.
I'm glad you got to witness that. That
was insane. I don't know if we'll ever see anything like that in pro football ever again. But kickoffs were a struggle for him at times. He had some struggles there, and that's part of the reason why they brought Liam Heller. Gosh, I'm going to botch up his last name, but they brought in Liam to punt and to also handle kickoffs. So that's a storyline to watch here in camp.
Yeah, much more coming our way here from around the UFL as we're going to slowly grind things down to our final bits for this show. Did update here on the poll. Split poll, by the way. I was actually surprised at this. So we put in the poll, who makes the best jerseys for football? And I put the big three. Nike and Under Armour split the votes at 45% each. Adidas coming in at a dreadful third. 8% of our viewers thought Adidas make decent jerseys. Now, I'll be honest with you, if I'm on like Twitter and I hear people talk about it, Adidas to me, I usually see as one of the lower ranking ones, so I'm not shocked. But I didn't expect like nobody to touch it. Under Armour was leading the way on the votes while I was checking the chat most of the time. Nike rallied back. So fascinating stuff. Maybe UA needs this is probably going to get some boost with this UFL deal right here. Not to mention they got plenty of traction in college levels. First off. Secondly, guys, got to do points. It's the end of the show. Not only 3 of us, but there's still points. I'm telling you what, we're going to maximize them out this week. No 4 points max. All of us get 5. That's how I view it. The troopers in the show this week, all of us get 5. We're going to do 5, boys. That's how we're doing it. Still, that's tiny.
I'm slightly disappointed in the UFL PR account because they typically tweet at 7 p.m. and no tweets yet. I know the second we go off live, they're going to let their tweet go. So
it happens that way every week, though. Like ever since the show started, we'll like dip, and then it happens just like that. Like we talk about these shows every week in our own chats. It's the same thing.
We might want to implement a counterattack to that of faking ending our live, but actually staying live, because then
tricks on you, leave it off for a couple minutes, and then pop back up. Hey, breaking news! This guy signed. Didn't think that was going to happen.
Clearly, they're watching.
That might be the play.
Clearly, they are watching still. That's the only reason. We can't do this. James is going to be on top of it. He gets the first call. It's not good. We can't do it. It's not good for us. PR's got to be first, and then we talk about it later. It's absolutely the case. Guys, if you want to follow us along, by the way, check us out around the UFL, social media on your favorite Facebook, Instagram, of course, X, formerly known Twitter, or Twitter. We still call it Twitter. It is what it is. Same thing, of course, for other shows at UFL Podcast. We will get an episode out this week. It's been a little bit delayed, but we'll find time to get that for me and Stefan here to jump on for recording, and we'll chat about all things coming up at the end of the week, especially with cuts coming up closer, maybe some more things coming out of camp as we get closer to the beginning of the season and to Spring Stock 3. Reminder once again, March 30th, Arlington, Texas. We hope to see you there, 9 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central Time out there, Choctaw Stadium. Hope we're going to be partying it up with folks at the tailgates out there with the Renegades. That we'll find them. We know they're there. We've already talked. We know they're out there. We are going to be by them. We're going to have a good time for as long as it takes, or until the security guards want to kick us out. And that'll another reason to tune in or show up, because that'll be fun. And you guys know you were there firsthand. Remember when security tried to give me a hassle last year? Yes.
I took care of them. I took care of them. And then the year before when they tried to kick us out, well, someone else took care of them, but I let them take care of them. So there's always
the 2023 championship.
Yeah.
That one guy,
I haven't heard from you in a minute.
Us the whole time from behind our tent.
Oh my god,
and,
that was.
He didn't think we had permission to set up there. I don't think he did. And then once we got on the phone, you could just see him like,
he knew he screwed up.
Is that right? And I'm just like, yeah, isn't that weird? We are allowed to set up. Oh, funny.
You mean to tell me the top brass let us stay here? Yes, they did. It's almost like they wanted us to be at this corner of this entrance.
The good old days.
Oh my God, last year was great. And shout out, by the way, for that first year, I was just say, shout out to Ray, wherever you are. I haven't heard from you in a minute, man. Hope you're doing all right. But you still will live in our memories as a guy that helped save Summer Stock 1.
And best steak I've ever eaten in my life. No joke. That steak was so fucking good. It was
the marinade
good.
Was like, it was perfect. It was perfect to the fine details.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts, gentlemen, before we head out as we close on a great show?
I don't think so. But it's another good week, another fun week, and less than 4 weeks to go until, at minimum, we get to get some Buc-ee's, some barbecue, and watch some football, Zach. I'm excited.
You're goddamn right.
Yeah.
Goddamn right. Gentlemen, it's been an honor as always to join you on show. Everybody in the chat, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you as always for making around the UFL a great part of your week and a great part of our weeks as well. We'll catch you next Monday, same time, same place, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on our UFL podcast channel. Be sure to subscribe, click that bell, builds morale, not only for you, but for us here at PF Newsroom, which, by the way, check us out, PF Newsroom, UFLnewsroom.com, where James and company are throwing up some incredible articles right now on training camp and all the latest signings, transactions, and you name it around the league. Until next Monday, and, well, until I guess next Friday, or this Friday for us, the UFL Podcast, stay tuned. See you then. Have a great evening, everybody.